So, David, are you going to tell me about these Dreadnought units?
You want table rules or their lore?
A little of both. What is a Dreadnought?
Alright, let's start with the table. Dreadnoughts are units with the vehicle, walker, Imperium, Dreadnought, and their specific Dreadnought keywords. They tend to have a toughness of 10, an armor save of 2+, and wounds of 12. Some have less, like the generalized Dreadnought, which is worse in all ways but saves, but it inspires units nearby to reroll wounds. They tend to have a base size of 90mm, but the general Dreadnought data sheet combines the Contemptor and Venerable Dreadnoughts into one, and they seem to have 60mm base, which seems sorta small, but looking at the Dreadnoughts in Space Wolves, who had the most unique Dreadnoughts, that seems pretty fitting for a Firstborn. Each Dreadnought has a different role. Ballistus is your long-range firepower and should stay close to cover. Brutalis is a mid-range or melee focused. I built mine for melee, being faster and having talons as an option, along with meltaguns. Redemptor Dreadies are an all-rounder unit, with only one melee option, but with multiple weapons, including options for Icarus rocket pods, a heavy flamer, a heavy onslaught Gatling cannon, and twin fragstorm grenade launchers at default, with replacement options for the macroplasma incinerator, twin storm bolters, or an extra Gatling cannon. They're also in 10th edition one of the units that can actually say, no, I don't take that damage, reducing the damage characteristic of any attacking enemy by 1 to a minimum of 1, which you have to hunt that little stipulation there like nobody's business. Now, General Dreadnought rules, now using the old Venerable models, have a wide variety of weapons, including being able to replace the Dreadnought combat weapon and Stormbolter with a missile launcher and close combat weapon, or just the bolter with a heavy flamer, or replacing the assault cannon with either a heavy plasma cannon, a multi-melta, or a set of twin las cannons. This one's intended to stick near other units, given its Wisdom of the Ancients ability, which gives any Astartes infantry units within 6 inches the ability to reroll a hit on a 1. They move pretty well. The Primaris ones move at 8 inches, while the general Venerable Dreadnoughts only move at 6 inches like a standard Space Marine, keeping with that grouping theme. Now that we've talked about what they do at the table, I could talk about each chapter's special ones, but I ain't gonna get into that, given the insane amount there are. Each chapter has about 6 different Dreadnoughts except for Deathwatch, General Marines, and Space Wolves. Deathwatch and Gens have the ones I mentioned, and most others new ones are special paint jobs on old Dreadies. Space Wolves, however, including character dreads, have 8. One that's just a Venerable with a cool hat, one that's for fucking werewolves, and they show them off despite that the Space Wolves kill anyone who know of that gene flaw wolfen bullshit. Seriously, these dreads don't have sarcophagus. They wolfen disembodied heads are just on show for everyone. But I'll need to talk about the fucking space furries in a future discussion. Hopefully not with Lehman Russ or anyone like that.
Look, even I don't want to talk to him. I heard he broke Magnus's spine because he was scared.
Yeah, the heresy was a weird thing with bad calls on everyone's part, but let's continue this talk. A Dreadnought is just as I mentioned before, a sarcophagus, usually the remnants of a Space Marine who performed well in battle or had a name of recognition. Their heads, a few organs, maybe some marine organs, mainly the gene seed produced ones, maybe? though I'm seeing reports that maybe gene seed can be harvested from a space marine before they die, so who knows with that stuff. Different writers, after all. But if a marine falls in a fight after performing well in a battle, he may be carried back to his fortress monastery, where his remains may be placed in a sarcophagus, and the sarcophagus placed into a dreadnought vehicle armor that allows severely injured body, if not entirely dead body, to serve, though often given special jobs. Most dreadnoughts are classified as ancients, and ancients are the most highly venerated veterans in their chapters. Almost always do veterans and ancients serve in the first company, assuming that the chapter is codex compliant, though those are few and far between. Most dreadnoughts are immediately put to sleep after it's tested if they can function in the life support warsuit, their damaged minds needing as much rest as possible. Tech Marines and Tech Prees often watching them closely after battles to make sure they don't break their mental capacity too much time after bedtime, causing them to sometimes go mad and need a hard reboot of the brain. Dreadnoughts are only woken up, according to lore, when there's either a dire need for them in a desperate battle, which, let's be honest, if you've got a painted Dready, you're showing that shit off, or if the chapter wishes to learn from an experienced ancient about how to deal with certain situations. Some dreadnoughts are meant for one very particular set of duties, to simply remember. He who remembers is the Ancient of Rites. They oversee and keep track of rituals in the chapter or legion. Ancients of Rites would likely fall into Blood Angels, Space Wolves, and White Scars, Iron Hands, and possibly other legions turn chapters. The most famous Ancient of Rites is the one who deserves it better than all others. Renor of the Emperor's Children, a venerable class dreadnought, though most artwork puts him in a Contemptor pattern dreadnought from the Horus Heresy, who he chose not to betray the Emperor, but stay loyal and chose to attempt to kill Fulgrim, his Primarch, with one of the virus bombs that failed to kill him on the Istvan III atrocity. Of course, Chaos have their own dreadnoughts, usually more ancient than any ancient we see in the Imperium, but despite the fact that they're using way out of date tech, old does not mean dead, and new does not mean best. Hellbrutes are the specific dreadnoughts, former Castiforum dreadnoughts, usually a part of the Sons of Horus, Emperor's Children, Night Lords, Iron Warriors, or Wordbearers. Maybe the Alpha Legion, since they're the ones that don't have their own armies yet. These Hellbrutes are not near as tanky or fast as the newer Primaris dreadnoughts, and arguably not as good as the venerable Firstborn, but what they make up for in beef, they got in weapon options. Of course, those that pilot a Hellbrute are not always corrupt by chaos when they start. They often serve out of a lie or serve out of loyalty. But after a while being awake in constant war against those you called a brother, every screw will come loose. Of course, Dreadnoughts are some of my favorite units in 40k, though I admit I don't know very well how to use them yet, but I intend on learning soon. I hope someday to bring an army of nothing but Dreadnoughts and Tech Marines to the table just to see how my opponent will react.
That is very interesting information. I have many more questions, though. For example, Custodes Dreadnoughts, specific Chaos Legion Dreadnoughts, Tech Marines, Awakening Rituals, and this Renor, Ancient of Rites. Can you tell me more about him?
I am one of the Emperor's children. I am Renor and I am the Ancient of Rites.
Shove off.